vice and play music.
Salman, just to take one vehicle of God's creation, music, and to say, well, we're going to ban this. In the Quran, it mentions that Gabriel, the angel, will blow the trumpet. There's a mention of the trumpet in the Quran.
I think that's a different usage there,
You
isn't
just
it?
actually said basically what I'm trying to say, that it's the usage of whether it's
and
music.
remember, angels, there's different rules for human beings and angels as well. We have to understand this.
Haras. It comes down to intention. I believe as Muslims, and the majority of Muslims, that God judges us by our intentions. To ban music is a little bit like saying the pen is banned, the pen is haram, because the pen is something that you can use to actually write something good, or you can write something bad with the pen. Therefore, it's not the pen itself which is bad, it's the usage of that. Similarly with music, it's around intention. What is the music for? How is the music being used? If the type of music is a particular lifestyle, whereby if you look at the modern day sort of hip-hop, where there's a gangster lifestyle and people are taking drugs, etc., then I would say that is a particularly bad form of music.
I want to come to that in a moment.
But music itself, when it is good and when it is used with the right intention, it can be a great source of spirituality. It can be a great source of actually getting closer to God.
Salman.
The issue about music and musical instruments is a non-issue, where a lot of, I would say, extremist, distorted interpretations take the focus off of things which are much more important for the Muslim community. Music provides an opportunity to bring unity, to bring people together.
I want to play you a little clip of music. It's music to me, of which I rather think you'll approve, Saleem.
وَاضْرِبْ لَهُم مَّثَلًا أَصْحَابَ الْقَرْيَةِ إِذْ
Now, Saleem, to me, that's music.
Exactly, because in the English form, a cappella comes under music, banging on the drum will come under music, manipulation of voices comes under music. But what we are talking specifically about, what Islam forbids, is either singing about immoral and un-Islamic themes or various instruments.
But to me, that music is reliant entirely upon harmony, the music of the spheres, if you like. And that's a God-given gift.
Yes.
So if it's right for the human voice, why is it not right for human instruments?
Well, this is the thing, because Islam means submission, and to submitting to God's ultimate wisdom. God teaches us in the Quran that God taught man by the pen. God taught that which man did not know. So God knows the metaphysical properties of things that human beings would not be able to see necessarily on a tangible basis.
Haras, does it not strike you as almost incomprehensible that God would create that wonderful gift and not allow us to express it to the full?
Oh, absolutely. If God has given us such a wonderful gift, which he has, it would be disrespectful to God to not use that gift in the best possible way. And I think that by producing sounds which soothe the heart, by using sounds which actually increase your spirituality, using sounds which actually help you relax. Islam is not just about the do's and don't do's. Islam is not just about reading your 5 prayers a day, a very important part. It's not just about fasting. It's not all about the things that you choose. It's also about attaining inner moral excellence. And one of the great ways that one can actually attain inner moral excellence is by reflection, is by becoming more spiritual. And music, in all of its forms, when it's actually used for good, is a great way to do that.
Salman, is what you do exercising a spiritual gift?
We live in a hyper-connected world. And what music does is it's able to unify and communicate culture, history, and spirituality. So the idea of taking that away and saying, well, this is purely Muslim, everything's Muslim as far as I'm concerned.
Well, let me remind you that you're listening to Beyond Belief, and today we're discussing Islam and music. There is evidence that some Muslim parents are pulling their children out of music classes in schools in Britain because they feel it's un-Islamic. What's the problem with Islam and music? And with me are Salman Ahmad, a rock musician with a huge following worldwide, Saleem Chagtai, an imam who takes the view that most music is un-Islamic, and Haras Rafiq, who loves music and thinks it's good if you listen with the right intention. One of the emerging musical genres in recent years has been hip-hop. Munira Rashida and Sukina Abdul Noor met at university at Bristol and formed a hip-hop group. A few years later, they both converted to Islam and began to express their faith through their music. Today they are part of Poetic Pilgrimage.
This is something you weren't expecting. Muslim chick might get hand rapping. Must be perplexing, or my girl ain't even stepped in. That's unintentional, we're unconventional. Don't need to mention more
I asked Munira if they got much criticism from within the Muslim community.
You have many people who are born into Muslim families, but they are distinctly British, the culture which they know is British, and they're not able to understand their parents or may not be able to understand traditions. But a lot of people, they hold on to their cultures as well, because that's the way how they interpret the religion. In some people's cultures, women performing or hip hop, all these different things aren't a part of it. So for some people, they find it extremely hard. We do definitely face that. We do definitely get a lot of criticism from people. But regardless, we are British-born Caribbean people, and we embrace the religion and not people's cultures. So for us, there's nothing to say that we shouldn't do this,
Sukina, do you think the fact that you do hip-hop, and that's based mostly on the spoken word, makes it more acceptable to Muslims?
Not really. I think if anything, that might even be more of the problem, because some people are not used to hip-hop and Islam inhabit in the same space at all. To some people, it's two polar extremes. And I think because of the fact that hip-hop today has very negative connotations, it's seen in a very negative light, a lot of the Muslim community, they don't understand anything about the culture of hip-hop. They just see certain elements on TV. They think that we're trying to mix something which they think is so sordid with their religion, which they see as so pure. What has probably made hip-hop easier, though, is the fact that a lot of young people all over the world, particularly in the Muslim world, are using hip-hop as a tool to express themselves, because hip-hop is, I think, one of the most popular musical genre right now, and because Islam is the fastest growing religion, it's inevitable that there's going to be some collision. And I think because hip-hop's always been an art form which has been the mouthpiece of a people who feel marginalised, I think that's the reason why it's so popular, but I don't think that's made it easier.
Munira, what do you say to Muslims who will state that women shouldn't sing or be heard by men, that it's sinful to do so?
Sakina and I, we're not here to try and change people's opinions. What we try to do with our music is that we try to build bridges between communities. For Poetic Pilgrimage as a group, the notion of women not being able to be heard or women not being seen within society is completely preposterous, in the sense that if you have a community and what you're saying is half of that community doesn't have a voice, or half of that community is not allowed to express themselves, then ultimately the community is not being expressed in the correct manner, and everybody has the right to express themselves.
Sukina, hip-hop very often has very crude lyrics. It's full of misogyny, hatred of women, it's full of violence, it's full of guns. Do you think it's appropriate that you should be part of this cultural genre?
I 100% think it's appropriate that we should be part of this cultural genre because of the fact that hip-hop never began like this. Islam as a religion is hugely misunderstood. I think the same thing exists with hip-hop. Hip-hop is misunderstood as a genre.
You can't ignore those lyrics. Some of them are very offensive.
Yeah, totally. There's a huge culture and there's a huge amount of rappers and MCs and people that are part of a hip-hop community that are striving to use hip-hop as a tool for social change. Hip-hop by itself isn't a bad thing. What's happened is that people are using it for bad things.
Munira, presumably you work in clubs where crude lyrics within a hip-hop context are part of the scene and where drink is part of the scene. How do you protect yourself against those influences?
Generally, if you find someone who's booking us, then they will book us based on the fact that we are Muslim, and they will respect that. We do try to negotiate that when we perform, that there's no alcohol around us.
So you're quite happy that what you're doing is entirely consistent with your Islamic belief?
Yeah, I mean, to the best of my abilities, we're all human beings, and regardless of whether I was a rapper or if I was a doctor or a nurse, as a human, we have flaws. But I am very clear on my religion, and I don't compromise my religion. I stay within the bounds of my religion to the best of my ability.
You were listening to Munira Rashida and Sukina Abdul Noor. Do you have any problems with what they're doing, Saleem?
When it comes to any aspect of Islam, there are things which are allowed, there are things which are not allowed. It's not for me to make the final judgment on whether God is going to account any one of us for any kind of sin or good deed or